Welcome, welcome everyone. Happy Tuesday, happy Valentine's Day, happy Friendship Day, happy mid-February. You blinked and we're mid-February. Welcome. Very excited to be here with you in this new year. We have a very busy agenda for today. Hopefully, we're not going to be rushing for till the very last minute, but today's meeting is intended to be uh, hopefully productive, but at the very least, it's going to be busy. So to get started, we're going to do just some quick check-ins. We're going to do carousel as we have in the last couple of partner meetings, or we're going to go into small groups of 3, check in. We're going to do this a couple of times. So you're going to just get to meet some of your peers in our cohort, in our network. I'm going to be asking a question. Please introduce yourself, share any information that is important for you to share about yourself, such as your role, title, identities that you bring with you today, and then answer the question. You'll have about 3 minutes total for the 3 of you to share. When we come back into the group, I'm going to ask 1 or 2 of you to introduce folks in your group. So who you spoke with and what you heard. And we're going to do this a couple of times. Again, these are going to be random. There is no hidden agenda on who we're going to be matching you with. Ideally, just for you to say hi to each other's beautiful faces. So for this first round, introduce yourself and just generally speaking, how are you doing today? So you'll see a prompt to join a breakout group, and you'll have about 3 minutes to introduce yourself to each other and just check in, how are you doing today? So when the rooms are ready, go ahead and hop onto your group. Hi, Tara, happy Tuesday. So folks are currently in a breakout group. We're doing just quick introductions, quick check-ins. Right now we're sharing how you're doing today. So you can check in with us if you'd like. You can also just hang out until the next breakout just to continue checking in. But welcome. Happy to see you in real time with us here today. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Wondering if maybe one of you would be comfortable introducing one of the people you spoke with. So who'd you speak with and what did you hear? What'd you hear? Feel free to just go off mic.
I can go. I apologize. I'm speaking from my kitchen because I'm trying to get lunch. My name is Felicia, and I spoke with Mashari with Big Brothers Big Sisters in Flint, Michigan. And how much am I supposed to share, Yvonne?
Anything that stood out to you?
I
How's
think what stood
Mishari
out
today?
is we were both trying to get some lunch in between both of our meetings, so we talked about that. And yeah, so she's recently been promoted and been with the organization for 5 years. So I was excited to meet someone new.
Congratulations, Mishari, and enjoy your lunch, Felicia. Full permission to eat, as long as it's not super loud and distracting and things flying everywhere on the camera, in which case just turn the camera off and enjoy your food. But thank you, Felicia, and congratulations, Mishari, for your promotion. In the interest of time, we're gonna go straight back into breakout groups. You're gonna get to meet different faces. Since we're a fairly small cohort today, you might see some not new faces, some repeated faces, but the idea is the same. Introduce yourself if it's new faces. And the question for this next round is, in what tone is the year starting for your program? In what tone is the year starting for your program? We'll see you in about 3 minutes. Hi, Alicia, welcome in. We're waiting for folks who are in a breakout group, just checking in. Right now, sharing in what tone is the year starting for your program. So since you're here with us today, hi, welcome to the call. In what tone is the year starting for your program?
Hey, it's good to see you guys. I would say we hit the ground running, so I think the tone's been pretty busy for us. It's been pretty nonstop, but it's also been good. A lot of planning of fun things coming up, and we got to go to a conference in DC to start it off. So
Yes. I
good
think we
things, but
crossed
busy
paths
things.
once and it was like a 3-minute interaction of,
If
hi,
that,
great to meet you, gotta run. Good to see
right?
you again.
How's your year been?
I'm gonna say it also started really busy. I think for many of us that are connected to youth mentoring, January is that month of, oh, you think the holidays is gonna be time to rest? Use up the time because January is here. So very much along with that, a lot of reporting, fairly busy. and can't believe it moved by so quickly. Welcome back, welcome back. We have a few more seconds until the rest of the group is joining us. All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So now I'm gonna ask two of you to introduce someone that you spoke with and how you heard them describe the tone of this beginning part of the year for their program. So whoever would like to go, feel free to just turn on your mic and go for it.
Yeah, I can jump in. Sean Perhoda here from Ames, Iowa. Got a chance to talk to Tara, who does the same title, at least, that I have as community-based mentoring facilitator, at least pretty similar. And she talked about her year, and I like that she used the word hopeful, thinking about what's going forward and just being able to plan for things to come and being able to have that spirit. I think it's really cool. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Shout out to YSS for just jumping on and being, thank you for just taking the mic. Thank you for taking the mic. Shout out to all of you. Hopeful is a very good word to start describing the year. Thank you, Sean. And I'm glad that's how you're starting, Tara. One more person, maybe, who would like to introduce who you spoke with and something that stood out and what you heard.
I'll go. I'm Tony in the Low Country, and I met Dana, who is, she is in Twin Cities. Was that the right one? Okay, and they are planning STEM and STEAM field trips right now for their year. And so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tony. And I'm glad you got to connect with Dana. Big shout out to the work all of you are doing in Twin Cities, the STEAM programming and the leadership programming that you all are leading there. Great, thank you. So we're gonna go into our last breakout just to do this last check-in. Again, introduce yourself if you haven't been in with these folks in a group before. And this question is along the same lines, but it's very narrowly focused now on what stood out from National Mentoring Month. So knowing that January is a really important, it's a big center of gravity for all of us and the work that we do. What stood out from National Mentoring Month? What were some growing pains? What were some big successes? What were things that you're bringing with you from National Mentoring Month? And we'll see you in about 3 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. All right, so same request, but slightly different. This time I'm gonna ask that you introduce yourself in answer for yourself instead of introducing someone else and sharing what you heard someone else say. If two of you could introduce yourselves to the rest of us here in the cohort, and what is something that you're walking away from this past National Mentoring Month? I'll ask about two of you to share. I won't force it with silence. I hope there were no terrifying red flags during National Mentoring Month. If there was a lot of wins and a lot of successes in my TA check-ins with some of you, it really seemed like the year started off strong for many of your programs. So congratulations. I hope you are able to give each other a collective pat in the back. Showing up for community, a program that focuses on connection while we're still experiencing weird ripple effects where people feel disconnected and isolated is really meaningful. So I hope despite how, or regardless of how National Mentoring Month sort of unfolded for your program, I hope you're able to walk away still feeling a level of success and ownership that the work that we all do collectively is very meaningful. So with that, thank you for checking in with us. Again, welcome to this 2023 branch of our cohort. And our agenda for today, we just did the welcome and a brief check-in. We're now going to do our traditional cohort impact overview. So we're gonna just do a quick update. How are we doing as a cohort? What are the trends that we're noticing? And then we're gonna go directly into starting to discuss peer-to-peer outreach. And considering that it is February, African American Month, we're really gonna be looking at the intersection of peer-to-peer outreach and talk about it in the context of Black Futures Month, since it is February. This is going to be the bulk of our meeting today. It is going to be somewhat busy. So if you need to stand up and get a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, some water, if you need to stretch, do whatever it is that you need to do so you can participate in whichever way feels most meaningful for you today. Once we're done with that, we're going to do just some general reminders and announcements as we're looking into the next couple of months or the weeks ahead for the life of the grant. That's basically what we have today. Again, pretty straightforward agenda. We're going to try to be ambitious with it. So without any more, I will pass it over to Joy.
Thank you, Yvonne. And hi, everybody. It is good to see you. Good to be in community with you all today. I haven't seen you all in a while. So it's nice to be here and be in space with you. So as many of you did in January, and your counterparts in where you are locally spent a lot of time in reports in January, in December, disseminating all of the valuable information up and out about the work and your efforts over the last year. And I first want to just say thank you for all of your efforts, for all that you're doing in your communities, and the way that you collaborate with Youth Collaboratory in partnership and in order to make positive impacts and improve outcomes for young people in your community. So thank you. I see the many hours of match support and the planning and the events and all of the work that you all are doing pouring in through IMS. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I know that it is no small feat. I wanted to reflect where we are now as a cohort. We're at about 60% of our overall match goal, which means we still have some work to do. And for those of you, we will be in communication with everyone if you haven't already had a conversation, and we'll talk more about that at the end around next steps and how we can continue to do this work. But there is work ahead of us to do for those of us who have the capacity to do it, and we'd love to continue to partner with you on that. So we have 1 in 3 families participated in quarterly events. We know we're coming out of a season where people have been uncomfortable gathering and just now getting comfortable. Now we're in the colder season, so people may have increased their comfortability and it's a little colder outside. And we're still managing some of the difficulties and challenging times. So we hope to see an increase in family participation. I think we're at about 28% of families overall participating in those events. So I know that it could be higher, and that information may just not be added into IMS, and you may have it in your internal systems or in your paper files, but we'd love to see that number increased a little bit. So if you have, in fact, more folks attending, let us know. And by family, we mean biological family, chosen family, anyone who comes with that young person, supports that young person, and attends those events. We'd love to see that happening in IMS, because we know you're doing the work in your communities. Right now, there are 32 community partnerships. So congratulations for making partnerships and sustaining partnerships. We know that the increase in positive outcomes for young people and the decreasing of risk factors is strongly related to the network of support that we can provide as a youth services community. I really appreciate this visual that Yvonne added here, and it speaks to the theory of change for Youth Collaboratory and the theory of change ecosystem for Mentoring Plus, was that we strengthen the support networks, the overall community, we support the caregivers, and we support the match. And so all of these 3 things are happening in these efforts of the check-ins that you're doing, inviting community members, and maintaining those partnerships. So thank you again for all of that work. Lots of fun activities, professional career development, engineering catapults, screen printing, shopping, cooking classes, college readiness workshops, some fun things. As a California person, Northern California person, I have no firm grasp on what it is to live in snow. So to actually live in a place where it snows and go outside on purpose and plan fun events, I have so much appreciation for you all and the fun ways that you engage with families. I would love to visit, not in the winter, maybe in the spring. But I think that's so beautiful that you all are getting people together and folks are coming out in the colder months to be with you. Something that I noticed in the reporting from this past season is that the quarterly reports, they must feel pretty good to put together and say, here's kind of what we're working on. I was really able to pull out a lot of the cool events that were happening in quarterly reports, and that looked different than the reports that I was pulling from IMS. And so please be sure that you're putting all of the events into IMS so that we can brag about the fun things that are happening and what you're doing in your communities up to OJJDP. The mentor SOR. So thank you for your work in surveys. I know surveys are part of the necessary portion of the work that we do in order to capture data and also to get an idea of our impact. So first, thank you for continuing to be sure that those surveys are completed and that the results are uploaded into IMS. What we're seeing right now is that the mentor strength and relationship survey at 3 months, the average is 3.81. At 12 months, the average is 4.34. So it increases. And then at the exit, it's going down to an average of 3.67. That's for the mentor, based on what we're seeing overall for the full cohort strength and relationship survey results. I want to compare that with what we're seeing on the mentee side. So for the mentee, we're seeing at 3 months a 4.67 average. So they're starting higher. At 12 months, they're going to a 4.3 average. And then at exit, they're settling in between at a 4.41. So you all have been really successful in being sure that the mentee feels a high level of support from the program, from the mentor, and it maintains, at a fairly high place. It goes down probably about that place where challenges happen naturally in relationships, and then it comes back up again as they continue to go through that natural match cycle. What is a little bit concerning is how do we ask the question, what is happening with our mentors that they are feeling less connected at the exit of a match? And so that's something that I want us to think about, like, what are you noticing and what insight could this provide for your staff, your program, and your planning? And what is happening that it declines at the end? What can we do differently? Because we know that our mentors, we'll talk a little bit, the whole purpose of today is around peer-to-peer outreach, but our mentors are a powerful hub of information for prospective mentors that they're going to tell their story and their experience to. So just want us to be thinking about that and let you know that score is coming across collectively, no finger pointing, but what can we do as a youth services field to be sure that mentors feel supported all the way through that match. And with that, I'll hand it back to Yvonne.
And we're going to continue for the rest of our time together today, really focusing on this experience that mentors are having. And the reason we want to focus on mentors today is because in conversations with many of you, just outreach has been challenging, enrollment of mentors has been challenging. And then we're also then with SOR data also seeing that just the experience overall, it's on a negative trend, on a negative pattern. And there's many different factors. Again, no finger pointing here, but we're thinking that a good place to start today, knowing that this is a very big conversation to consider what might be contributing to that declining experience or that declining quality of experience for mentors. We're thinking that really finding that intersection of peer-to-peer outreach. How is it that we center our limited resources and our limited capacities to really tailor an experience for mentors that they feel connected, that they feel supported, and that they feel is meaningful. So taking this quote from the Elements of Effective Practice, if you have it handy, it's on page 15. It says, few mentoring organizations can afford the time and costs of screening a large number of inappropriate applicants. Thus, recruitment materials need to be designed to attract and engage appropriate target audiences whose skills and motivations best match the goals and structure of the mentoring program. So every community should have an outreach strategy and a retention strategy that is unique to the needs of your community. not just to the needs of your community, but to the skills and motivations that match the structure of your mentoring program. So if your mentoring program is much more community-based, what are the skills? What are the structures associated with that? If it is site-based, what are the skills that a mentor is going to need to bring? What are the structures associated with that? And we know that every program is likely to be different, probably should be different in the way that we consider this. And rather than just focusing at the tail end of a program exit measurement, we're really choosing to start at that beginning. How is it that we consider that experience, that connection with potential volunteers, with the potential mentors from the very beginning? So we would like to hear from you as your program. What is your strategy? What is your thinking? So we're going to ask that you describe your current mentor outreach strategy. I will say that even the most informal strategy is a strategy. It might not be the strategy that you're more comfortable with. It might be more or less robust than you would like. Again, our programs have very limited capacity. So whatever strategy you have, formal or informal, how would you describe it? How many members of your community will come across information about your program each month? How do you measure that, if at all? If you don't have a measurement, what is your goal? How many folks would you like to see a clear invitation to become mentors? When they see that information, what specific call to actions do you include? Is it get familiar with the program, visit our Instagram page, register, call us, follow us? What is a specific call to action? And finally, how often do you assess for relevance and effectiveness? As times change, so should our strategy. You probably have heard me talk too many times about how we are competing with a TikTok attention span, where any information that we put out together will be in competition with that dopamine kick that those 9-second videos give a lot of us. Even if we're not on TikTok, that format is really everywhere we look at now. And if our information is asking people to pay attention for more than 9 seconds, how do you make sure that that is the appropriate amount of time for people to engage, to know what they're being asked to do, to know if they're the appropriate fit or not? Maybe they know someone who would be an appropriate fit or not. So rather than me just continuing to unpack these questions, we're going to ask you to go into small groups of 3. We're going to have this be at random with the very intentional purpose of you reflecting on your own strategy, but then also hearing how other folks in the cohort have been approaching their current mentor outreach strategy. So you're going to have a total of 5 minutes for this breakout group. Is going to be at random. Most likely it will be with someone that you have already seen. And at the very end, we're going to ask 2 or 3 of you to share anything that stood out, either reflections about your own strategy or things that stood out from strategies that you heard in other folks, and just share the highlights that stood out for you. So with that said, we'll see you in about 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I think that's all of us. Pretty sure that's all of us. All right, so I'm curious to hear 2, maybe 3 of you, what came up in conversation for you? What stood out in talking about mentor outreach strategies?
Yvonne Middleton here. All 3 of the people in our group, we all talked about engaging with our partners and utilizing kind of partnerships first and then kind of going from there. And having different kinds of partnerships, from churches to businesses to schools, universities, colleges, things like that.
Awesome. You have just created a point of a full circle, because we're going to come back to the role of partners in peer-to-peer outreach. So going back to this ecosystem image where we really center the match, but we know that supporting the match is existing within the context of the way we support caregivers and the way that we operate within a network of support. And so when we are thinking of peer-to-peer outreach in the context of this call today, we're very much thinking about how do we have an outreach that includes mentors who are able to identify people in their own lives that could be good mentors in our programs. So that's layer number 1. The second layer is who are our organizational peers who can also help in outreach, because we only have contact with the people that we reach. with the people who trust us. And we know that that's not everyone. So being able to rely and partner with other organizations in our community increases the amount of folks who might be able to receive the invitation to join the mentoring program. Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. Maybe one other person, what stood out in conversation around these strategies? Okay, I won't force it with silence. The back of my mind is playing some Bad Bunny. So I could sit over here in silence, just like doing elevator music on my own. So that silence was a little stretched up, a little too much. So let's continue thinking about the way that we outreach and intentionally consider who is in our community so that we can tailor outreach materials that are reflective of the needs and the skill sets that are a match to the structure of our program, but also what is interesting to mentors. One of the things that is often talked about in resources around mentoring, specifically on the adult side of mentoring, is that a lot of these negative outcomes could be explained by expectations, by a mismatch in expectation. Not so much that the quality of relationship itself is terrible, it's just that it doesn't meet the expectation that the mentor walked into the program with. And that's where these outreach materials can be very, very useful, because these are sort of that first introduction to what can you expect as a mentor. And we think it's important in the context of February of Black Futures Month to start thinking who is part of our mentor base, who is in there, who's not there. But more critically, how do we compare who is and who is not in our mentoring program with who is or isn't in the communities we serve? We're not necessarily pushing for a conversation where we have very specific type of identities in all of your programs. More so, we're asking that your programs are reflective of the communities that you serve. And when we think of Black folks in our communities, there is an underlying conversation that they are distant from our youth mentoring programs. They don't have capacity, they don't have interest. They just face an unproportionate amount of barriers to be able to come on into the role of mentor. There's this great article from Forbes magazine. This actually came out from last year, so not super new, but still relevant, where they discuss how research has shown that Black professionals often spend more of their personal capital mentoring young people and building inclusive spaces. And this is compared to folks of other racial identities. So really starting to challenge the fact that many of us are often asking, how do we get more male mentors? How do we get more Black mentors? And again, they stay at arm's reach, but research has shown that Black folks, that Black professionals, really, comparatively speaking, that they invest a lot of their personal capital into mentoring each other and mentoring young people. So it raises the question, if research is showing this, why is our program experiencing a different reality? The article also says that so far, anecdotal data is playing out. There are so many fantastic examples of mid-career Black professionals who proactively take time and money to help the next generation, even if it takes away these resources from their primary activity. This link in blue is available for you to read further once you have access to the PDF of these slides, if you would like to read the entire article. But thinking about some of the highlights that we talked about in the call today, the strength of relationship surveys is starting to point to declining or negative trend in mentoring experiences. We also know that our resources at our organizations are limited. Our capacity is limited, and it is important that we craft outreach materials that are relevant, that are useful, that are responsive. And in the context of Black Futures Month, really taking a critical eye of why it is that our organizations have been putting in so much effort and so much attention outreaching and inviting members of the Black community within our own spaces, but many times that is not representative in the data that we collect. So staying in this weird position of how is this happening, why are we here, and where do we go to next, I'm going to pass it over to Joy so that we start talking about specialized and intentional outreach.
Thank you, Yvonne. I really love that you use that article and have drawn drawn it to kind of that gap where one of the most frequent questions that we get asked is like, how do we increase Black male mentorship? And I think that article is a great way to for us to start thinking about it a little differently. So thank you for sharing that. We are super intentional about the words that we use. That's also one of the ways I think to improve collaborations is to continue in your partnerships and listening. For some of the work that we do here, some of you all know the way that I came into mentoring work is through mentoring youth impacted by trafficking. And so we know many of you have experienced working in community with folks who are have been placed at risk for trafficking or violence of some type or exploitation of some type, or who have actually experienced that. It is one of the risk factors in the drop-down menu of OJJDP things that we're screening for that we ask you to get information on. And for us, because we spend some time in community with folks who have had this experience, we're very careful about using recruitment, because recruitment in the trafficking world is referring to recruitment of people. And for trafficking, for sex trafficking, for labor trafficking. And so you'll notice that we use the term outreach instead in place of recruitment. Targeted, as we all know, has multiple meanings in the English language. And as we continue to be in community with a diverse range of people with diverse range of identities, especially people who have experienced violence. The term targeted can be triggering for some folks. In life after 2020 and life after very public deaths and violent deaths, we want to be mindful of language that could turn away some of the very folks that we're trying to have in our program. And so we would use specialized outreach instead of targeted recruitment. And it's never our goal to tell you how to talk to your community. We would leave that discernment and those decisions up to you. But as we as a youth services field, as a mentoring field continue to evolve, it's always our hope to share what we're hearing from the young people that we work with around what feels good and what feels inclusive for them. And this is some of what we're getting. So just wanted to share that with you all today.
So with that note of, we will continue to say specialized or intentional outreach as you're thinking about this in your own program. We hope this is parallel to many conversations that you may have been having about targeted recruitment. Again, we choose not to move away from that language, but I'm very excited to start walking us through a process of what does it look like to create a plan of intentional outreach? What could that look like? And so we're going to start that now. Specialized outreach, the plan is really guided by the question of what steps can we take to ensure our program community reflects the community we serve. So looking at our programs as a community within a community, and ideally our community will be reflective, or our small program community will be reflective of the community at large. So it's really important to know, what does our community look like? And what does our program community look like? So we encourage you to leverage trusted sources to better understand who is part of your community and move away from generalizations. There are great places. There's NPR, there are newspapers that are very credible, but many of those sources talk about national or international scale demographics. So it's really hard to think about how this incredible conversation from this researcher applies to my community, when my community might look and sound very different than the national or international trends that this researcher is talking about. So for purposes of this call, we are just elevating the data available from the census, that is public information, completely free, and also from pewresearch.org, which is a recognized neutral data think tank that makes a lot of really incredible commentary on data. The reason we're highlighting two The data available at the census website could be really good quantitative data for your program. Pew Research can offer a lot more qualitative data, so a lot more commentary and analysis of data and trends that you might be seeing. So we're going to be asking that you actually engage with both of these resources in a brief activity right now. Before we go there, we're now no longer going to go in random breakout groups. We're going to have a couple of rooms open, and we're going to ask that you join with your team. You're going to find a breakout group with the title of your team, your organization. We're going to ask that you join that in a second. And we're going to ask that with your team, you compare local demographics with your program demographics. So starting to look at, you can choose your scope. Do you want to look at your state? If you're a statewide organization, do you want to look at your county? Do you want to look at your city or a very limited number of zip codes? That's completely up to you. But we're going to look that you compare demographics from your program to demographics from that region, that community that you're choosing to focus on. We have put together, based on the information that you have shared with us in the IMS, we have created some preliminary demographic reports for you. So if you don't have any demographic reports for your program, we got you. You're more than welcome to use the one that we created. If you have a report that you already use, feel free to pull that up. Feel free to bring that in a second. And then we're going to ask that once you dedicate about 5 minutes just to pull your data together, then to engage with your team. What are you noticing? Where are the gaps? Where are the overlaps? So the pewresearch.org, if you choose to go into that website, it's again, it's a lot more qualitative content. So you might have to search more topics rather than demographic data. When you go to the census website, this is a lot more qualitative than quantitative. If you're not familiar with the data, with using the information from the data before, strongly encourage you to play around for an hour or two in the coming weeks. It's a great resource. For now, if this is the first time that you are using it, what I encourage you to do is to go to the Explore Tables link. It will automatically bring up very common sets of data from the 2020 census. So you'll be able to see that this information is more recent than not. And you can start clicking around to look at race, to look at age and sex or gender identity, demographic and housing estimates. Again, it is up to you as a program to ask yourself, what information do we want to look at? Another interesting place to start, if it's not in Explore Tables, is in the top right hand side of the screen. There is a link to Maps. You can click on Maps and select. Let me zoom in here. Let's say, for example, Connecticut. You can view the profile, and rather than looking just at a chart, you can look at a more interactive profile of different regions. You can look at population breakdowns. You can look at ancestry breakdowns, computer and internet access. So there's a lot of really good information available here through the census website. In the chat, I am going to share 2 links for you to reference right now. The first one, it is a shared folder with all of those demographic reports that I mentioned earlier. So let me put that in the chat right now. So if you go to this link, you will see a handful of spreadsheets. All of them are in view only, just to protect access to this data. You are more than welcome to download a copy of the report for your organization and then be able to interact with the data in that way. Just to give you a sense of what that's going to look like, East Tennessee, I'm going to put you on blast. I apologize. But this is where you're going to see when you open it, you're going to see first an overview tab where we summarize by gender, ethnic, racial identity, and location, and just prompting you what other information is useful. You will see the information where we pull this from. So this is the mentee information, all of it from IMS, and same thing for mentors. So you're more than welcome to come back and look at the individual breakdown. This is just a very high level overview that gives you the specific count of mentees and mentors and the percentage relative to your program. So in this case, again, apologies, East Tennessee, I would generally give you a heads up so that this didn't feel uncomfortable, but just for I apologize. And just for example, you can see here that 45% of their mentees identify as male, while 56% of their mentors identify as male. This in itself does not really point at any good or bad it's not a bad or good qualification. It just kind of is. But it's important to then ask yourself, how do you explain this? How may this be impacting the experience of your program? So we're going to give you about 10 minutes to, as your team, in your individual teams, let me move this out of the way, to look at the data either through these reports that we put together, through reports that you may already have prepared, and then start comparing the data, the demographics of your program with that of your region. And again, we strongly encourage you to approach this conversation in the context of Black Futures Month. So if it is relevant and useful for your program, which I would argue it probably is for every program here today, really encouraging you to consider what might be overlaps and gaps experienced by Black folks, Black members of our program community. So with that, you will see in the breakout groups, you should see your organization title and the option to self-select you to join there. When you're ready, join, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes. For those of us that are still on the call, if you hover over the breakout rooms option, it should give you a list of every organization that is here today. So just move your cursor over to join, the join option next to the organization that you are with.
Yvonne, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm looking at our data for demographics in the Low Country, and it looks like multiracial or multi-ethnic students have been separated into different individual ethnic groups. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because many times our conversations around being responsive, specifically around race, it does specifically, it asks people to make themselves a single racial identity. I'm getting sidetracked here already. The way that these numbers come from IMS is we're just taking the numbers as you enter them as a program. So some of these numbers might be higher than your total number of program participants if someone selected multiple racial identities. So they'll be represented across multiple. And personally, I think that it is like, how do we talk about this? How do we respond to this is where we are as a field. So I'm curious to hear what comes up for you when you see these numbers, and how does this influence the way you think about outreach strategy?
Okay. Yes, as when I saw that, because we focus on primarily African-American students or who identify as African-American plus another race. And that is what I see that I have an Asian student and 4 white students, and I'm like, nope, I have multiracial students in this group. And that's why I was wondering, well, how it's separated, because they do identify themselves as multiple races, not just African-American.
So it's very likely that this one Asian student that is part of your program, it is very likely that they're also represented in some of the other categories where you have demographics populated. So they might also have selected Black, African-American, and or white. And the same goes for mentors. So we didn't go individually look line by line to see how many identified multiple races, but we do know that folks bring multiple identities with them. So there will be overlap, and the number here is likely to be higher than the total count of mentees in the program if and when people select more than one race. And we do not expect a person to choose whatever race they want to be counted as. We count them as they count themselves.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
All right, welcome back. If your experience navigating data sets is anything like mine, 10 minutes was barely tipping your toe in the water. It was just like, oh, okay, we see the lay of the land, but deep exploration is hard to do in 10 minutes. But again, part of today is really just to start getting a general outline of how do we start the process of specialized outreach. And that first step that we suggest that we think is important is really asking ourselves who is in our program, who's not in our program, who's in our community, who's not in our community. So I'm very curious about some general things that came up for you. What did you notice? What stood out? Were there overlaps? Were there gaps that you noticed that were interesting to you in your discussion?
I can share, and it actually wasn't me, it was actually Dana. There was a question she asked, and we haven't had a chance to dive into it too. So it's very late, Ivana. I personally need more time. But because we do more of a cohort, Dana asked a really great question is, how does our matches that are involved in our cohort program, how do those demographics compare to those who are not involved in our cohort program? So thought that was a great question.
Yes, yes, it is. I would also like to raise a comment or a train of thought that was kicked off by Tony over in Low Country around how are these demographics mindful or inclusive of individuals that bring multiple racial identities with them. And so for some of you, depending on the data as you entered it in the IMS, you will see that the total number of matches is lower than the amount of people, than the total count within that ethnic and racial identity breakdown. So if folks selected multiple racial identities, then they are counted multiple times here. And we are considering that as an appropriate measurement of who is in our program. Again, we're not asking folks to narrow themselves into like their favorite racial identity or whatever other way people would decide how to choose just one. So you will see that here as well. Along with the question that Dana is raising of how does this compare with different types of mentoring programs that we offer? I think a really good question, but one that is way beyond sort of the time that we have for here today is what is the intersection between specific demographics and some primary risk factors or some demographics and protective factors? And how is it that we might be able to strategize more intentional outreach with partners to be more responsive to risk factors or to be more responsive to protective factors. So being able to wonder, how does this guide us? How does this give us a point of reference is a great question to approach data, absolutely. One more person who would like to share anything that stood out to them and their discussion. Hearing none and looking at the time, we're now gonna move to part 2 of our sort of this structure that we have. In the same link where you found the link, the spreadsheet, the report, you will see that there is a worksheet, 2023 Intentional Specialized Outreach Worksheet. I will also put it on the screen for all of us to look at right now. This is a PDF that you're more than welcome to download and fill out by hand. It is also a PDF that you're welcome to just use and appropriate in your own computer. And so we're going to be working through both sides of this handout right now. Again, outreach and recruitment, which is language that we're moving away from, needs to be designed to attract and engage appropriate audiences whose skills or motivations best match the goals and structure of the mentoring program. Again, this is from the Elements of Effective Practice, and we are hoping that this handout is one way in which we're able to actionalize that, to operationalize that. So in this handout, we have linked the slide to this presentation, just in case you want to reference it in the future. What we're going to do now that you have a general sense of the demographics in your program, a vague sense of the demographics in your community, we're now going to start thinking of how do we leverage that information to intentionally facilitate peer-to-peer outreach. And again, peer-to-peer in the context of mentor to mentor and community partner to community partner, seeing both of those in the context of peers. So peers among peers and organizations among organizations. We're going to take one of these at a time. So starting with peer-to-peer mentors, we're going to ask that you go into a breakout group again with your group. So you're going to continue doing this sort of group processing that is specific to your program. And we're going to ask that you think of 3 mentors who stand out, full stop. When you think of 3 mentors in your program community who stands out, who are they? So identify 3 of them. And who are they? Why do they stand out? We're not necessarily going to qualify positive or negative experiences here. If they stand out for a reason. So why are they standing out? If you wanted to leverage their experience as a mentor so that they could think of their own networks to invite to be mentors, what materials or what information do you need as you ask them to invite their own networks to consider mentoring with your organization? Is it flyers? Is it a YouTube video? Is it a post that you made on Instagram? Is it an invitation? Is it details to an event that you have coming up so that you can tell them, oh, invite some of your friends to this picnic that we're having together. So as you're thinking about these mentors, and as you're thinking about how you would approach them so that they consider inviting members of their network to be mentors, what information would they need? What information do you need to provide for that very specific ask? And finally, what are the concrete action steps that you can take this month or this quarter? So looking at the rest of February or looking at the through the end of April, I think just thinking about a month is a good idea. So you're thinking perhaps for the next call that you're going to have, the next check-in call, is that a moment where you would like to check in with them? Or if they are SVP'd to a pizza party that you have, is that when you're going to check in with them? So we're going to do this with mentors. We're going to ask that you as a group, feel free to use the handout, feel free to use a different shared document if you have a different document. But we're going to ask that for the sake of this activity, you think of 3 individuals, start identifying what is their contact information, why do they stand out as potential partners to outreach, what materials do you need to prepare, and what is your plan of action for the next month or the next quarter. So you're going to have 5 minutes to do this as a group. And just to give you a full disclosure, when we come back, we're going to do some practice rounds. So we're going to ask that you volunteer one of the mentors that came to mind. One of us is going to pretend to be the volunteer. One of us is going to pretend to be the program staff. And we're going to run through what that conversation is going to look like so we can get the feel for it in real time. So that's what we have for the next 10 minutes total for these first 5 minutes. Quickly with your team, think of who are these 3 mentors that could help your program strengthen or deepen your peer-to-peer mentor outreach strategy. The group should be open. Feel free to join when you're ready. Welcome back, everyone. So in my ideal situation, if this activity is going in the best case scenario, you might be asking yourself, what do I do with this now, Ivan? Youth Collab, we have this, what next? The idea is that now you engage in conversation with these folks and you're able to start considering that asking directly and clearly that you are hoping that someone might consider inviting members of their own network, sharing their experience as a mentor with others and invite them to be part of your mentoring program, that is an effective way of approaching conversations. There is no magic spell where you give 3 phone calls, 2 texts, 3 images, and then someone will start reaching out to their peers. Typically, it is that direct and clear request of, we see you. We see what you bring to this program. And I'm wondering, have you thought about folks in your own connections, in your own relationships that might enjoy being a mentor here in the program like you have? So to put a little bit of practice with that and be able to tap into our collective expertise in having these conversations, I'm going to ask that one of you volunteers a mentor. So someone that came to mind. And then I'm going to ask one of you to be the facilitator specialist, and one of you will be as the volunteer or the mentor. Everyone else is going to be completely cued in with what are strategies that are worth replicating, what is something that could be done differently next time. I can volunteer myself to either role to make this a little bit less awkward, but I would love to also encourage some of you to step in. So first volunteer to give us a profile of a mentor. Who are they? Why do they stand out? We also only have 5 minutes left and we're going to end on time. So
I will share. We have a mentor. Her name is Stacy. She's in our Big Beyond program. She stands out because she is focused on the development of her scholar who is interested in culinary arts. So she's leveraging her social capital to make experiences for this young lady. She has a friend who owns a catering business, so she made that connection for her scholar to be there with them on a Saturday and get, be in the mix with that. She is taking her to a college tour that has a culinary arts program. She's also inviting her to an event that her company is sponsoring that's like a chef tasting where they have lots of chefs coming through and she can be on the guest side of things. And she's creating all of this exposure for her scholar and taking time. She's committed. So, and now she's serving on our board.
So
That's why
many
she
things.
stands out, right? There's a lot. She's
So
amazing.
many things to be able to, when we have a conversation with Stacy, we don't need to go down that entire mentor CV as it were, but there are so many little details there that could be leveraged to bridge a request of, do you know of anyone else who could have a similar impact on one of the young people that are part of our program? So now that we know Stacy, thank you for bringing Stacy into the room with us, Tony. I'm going to ask for a volunteer to be Stacy. One of you who would like to be on that side of the phone call or on the other side of the screen. If someone is feeling really brave and courageous to be the match facilitator who is going to be leading that conversation, any volunteers? Felicia's like, nope, hard pass. So I acknowledge that it could be intimidating to be the match specialist. So I'll be the match specialist in this activity. I'll be the one who's speaking with Stacy, but I do need to speak with a Stacy in this case. So would anyone like to pretend to be hopping in a quick monthly check-in call with me?
I will do it, but y'all, come on.
All right, Joy.
Amazing.
All right, so I'm going to call you Joy because it feels a little disrespectful to Stacy to just completely stamp her name on non-Stacy. But I'm going to ask that you embody Stacy to the best of your ability.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna say, hi Stacy, just checking in. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Can't believe it's the middle of February already. But here I am, just checking in. A typical. How have you? What have you been up to with your mentee this month?
Oh my goodness, we have so many cool things planned, and I'm looking forward to our next get together, which is going to be something amazing with food.
That's incredible. And food, it always has that special little piece of magic to almost anything that we do with each other. Cool. So I'm gonna fast forward the conversation. Thank you so much for checking in with me. One last thought. So here in our program, we have a handful of young people that are waiting to be matched with a mentor. And you have brought so much just this past month, all the activities that you did with your mentee, these culinary events that you're planning to be a part of in these coming weeks. It must have a very profound impact on your mentee and on you. And we're actively looking for other potential volunteers that can offer the same experience to other young people. Is there anyone in your network that comes to mind who might be able to consider joining us and be matched with a mentee and have similar types of experiences that you are having with your mentee?
You know what? The person who picked up my call, the friend who does the catering, I met somebody at that event who was really impressed by my mentee. Maybe I can have a follow-up call or coffee with them and see if they're interested.
Great, great. I have a couple of handouts. If you would like to have them available, I can send them to you via text or I can mail them to you. But they can have general information for you to share if you'd like, or if they're available on March 13th, we're having a community picnic and they'd be more than welcome to join us to get a feel for their program. Is it okay if I send you the information for that event?
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining me, for telling me what you did this past month. And thank you so much for helping us connect folks in our community with youth in our community. I hope you have a great rest of your month.
Thank you so much.
And scene. So that one, I even stumbled a little bit. So that's more or less why rehearsing is important. I encourage you to do these type of, not so much role play, but some of this improv prototyping with your teams. We are already at time. Traditionally, I would do a plus delta. Know that not every conversation needs to sound the same. It should ideally be responsive, but again, just being direct, we're looking for folks to be part of our program. We think, is there someone that you can think of? Unfortunately, because of time, We're not going to go through the same process as we're considering peer-to-peer outreach with our community partners, but we encourage you to engage in a similar process with your team. Who are community partners, existing or potential, and what does a mutually beneficial partnership look like? What materials do you need to share with them? Similarly, do you want to do a care package where you send flyers so that they could have at their office? Are there social media campaigns that you could partner with together? And what are concrete action steps that you can take next quarter? So all of that is in the handout for you to reference in the future. The handout is for you to use as you need if it is beneficial. With that, I will pass it over to Joy to do final reminders before we start checking out.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Quickly, we will be doing a virtual gathering for our M+ convening. It will be March 29th and March 30th from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please be sure to save that date on your calendar. We'll be getting some information to you soon. We do ask that at least 2 people from each of the sites are present for both of the days for the full time. And if there are more people, that is totally fine. As many as you would like that you think would benefit from the conversation, please, and be sure that they have the date held as well. Because of this, there will not be any M+ mandated travel. And so if you need to start to look at your budget to make some adjustments, now is a good time for us to do that. Also, in preparation for the virtual gathering, we will be sending some materials to you. So of course, we have your mailing address for your building if it hasn't shifted in the last 2 years. But people may prefer to receive things at home. People may not be working from the office. So please confirm your mailing address, shipping address with Yvonne or Leslie so we can be sure to get the materials that you will need for the gathering. Also, I know that we are currently outside of the original match implementation period for this cohort. And like I mentioned earlier, we are hopeful that we can continue to do this work together and extend the match implementation period for you all. So we will be in communication soon with specific dates and next steps on extending the match implementation period. If you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to Leslie, Yvonne, or myself, and we can clear those up, but do look out for some correspondence in the coming week or so on next steps. Thank you so much for being with us today, for getting through report season, National Mentoring Month, Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Thank you and welcome to Sierra Dickerson, who is our new behind the scenes technology wizard and maven. We appreciate you. May you go forth and have a beautiful day and continue to celebrate Black Futures Month in February, and we look forward to seeing you soon.